Hello. Um, I can, I can barely hear myself. Oh wait, no, I can hear myself. All right, all right, Blender. Yes, Blender. Here we go. I have Blender pulled up, and I have the beginner tutorial up here again. Oh, hold on. Let me mute my stream again. I hate ads. They're so annoying.
Now we know how Blender functions.
Oh. All right. Let me let me put my stream on one half of this screen, and the tutorial on the other half, so that I can look at chat while I'm doing the tutorial. Anyway, Blender.
Now we know how Blender functions, let's start building that donut. So, as before, let's...
Hold on, let me just familiarize myself with the rotate R, shortcut R. Move shortcut G for some reason. Scale shortcut S. Alright, I familiarized myself with it, and then you can move around like this, right? And 0 is like that. Well, let me go do the thing again. You select this, go to properties, view, camera to view. Alright. 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 Let's do the tutorial.
well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you are working with a new scene. Completely new scene, don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube, just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift-A. And as I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh, because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. You know, if it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut-shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus for some reason. So let's add that. Now if I zoom in by scrolling up, we can see we have something resembling a donut. It looks like a pretty weak looking donut, you know, very flimsy. Looks like the donut before it's cooked when they just drop it into the vat and it's just this little wispy thing. So immediately after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box, and if you click that box, you see options. Hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box.
Huh? Where's that box? Hold on. Am I blind? I think I might be blind.
Options to change it. And the options are, after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it.
I'm not seeing the box. So there's something I'm missing. So there's material preview, solid, rendered, and wireframe. Oh. Yeah, sometimes I'll have that because, oh, wait. Shift A. Taurus. There, I finally found it. Oh my god.
And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box, and if you click that box, you see options. And look, we can change the dimensions of our torus. Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action.
Man, I should have paused later. I should have paused later. I feel like that's a good donut size.
If you do another action, like say deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on, you've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want, right? Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to click it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay, so we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely, to make it higher or lower fidelity. And a mistake that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I started learning Blender, is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project, one of my first projects was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it. But also, as you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it's very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you can get away with. So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but I find that something that looks kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with something around about this size, okay? And once I'm ready to click.
Oh, right. They changed the radius. Just copying exactly the radius they did. So far, nobody in chat. It's a ghost town in chat. Bummer.
I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher resolution, less jagged? Well, one way is to use smooth shading. So if you right-click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Without getting too technical, this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out faces, and anyway, it's very...
That's very interesting.
Technical, but basically it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want, something that is smooth and organic like we want. If you were rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on the counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? Silhouette is really breaking that illusion, poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there's another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench.
Okay, wrench, modifiers.
And this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you've got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is underneath generate, and it is called subdivision surface. And it is a really...
Okay, I'm gonna wait for computer to I'm gonna wait for computery to compute this thing. Alright.
Common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control-1.
Whoa, okay, I already see the effect. That's really interesting. That is really interesting.
We got it, so there. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got Subdivision at the very bottom, Disable GPU Subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe not non-existent or not performing whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But
well, I have a graphics processing unit, so I don't need to do that. My donut is still very much here. I like it. I like how it looks already. Oh, this is gonna be so good. I'm already excited to learn 3D modeling a donut.
if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode, because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there.
Okay, shade flat. Alright, so how do I, hold on. Let me see how it is without... Huh. That is interesting. That is really interesting.
If I set this levels viewport to 0...
Oh, I can just do that? Oh. Oh. What is render? What does render do? I'm just gonna keep it on too.
This is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface, essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain it, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is... these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right? And then now, if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces. And then if I zoom in again, it's now become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subsurf modifier, what it's going to do is it's going to add a point here, right? Because this is the extra detail. It's also going to take that point there and it's going to average it out. It's going to average it out between these points. And it's going to create another one there, another one there. So you go then from having that really hard corner there to having something that looks a lot smoother. So it's going to take a point and it's also going to change it to make it look smoother, generally speaking. So there we go. So now as I increase this, you can see it's getting smoother and smoother. Now the reason there are 2 options here, you've got levels viewport and levels render. So reminder, this gray area that we operate in is called our viewport. The render is the pretty version. So as an example, you can see if I just turned it off for the viewport, it looks very jagged. But then for my render, if I increase that to 3, if I do my render, which you could go up there and render image, or remember the hotkey F12, you can see that that donut is now smooth, but I go back and you can see it's jagged. So the viewport, you want to generally keep it lightweight, and then the render time, that's where you want to get a really nice looking pretty image, so you want to often have 2 different levels.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep it, so it's gonna look like this when I render it, but when I'm looking at it like in the editor, it's gonna look like this. I get it. Cause render's at 2.
Case though, I don't really think we need to go beyond 1, even for our final pretty image, because this with shade smoothing turned on is good enough. And we're going to be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too complex. So this is actually pretty good. Okay, so we have a perfect donut. And that's the problem. It's too perfect. You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. this is so mathematically precise that the eye will always see this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that things that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there like you see in the real world because your eye expects to see it. So how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting? I do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left-hand corner you can see we are in object mode. But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options, again, will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here. So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right. Now, you can see our mesh, our object has become something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it with lines and very technical. Well, that's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices, regardless of whether it's one or two, just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have two of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have four of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with these, I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before, and if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G. Right? And you can see it's now attached to my cursor, and then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now if I go back into object mode, like that, you can see that my mesh has changed, okay? And by the way, the hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode,
I want to save faces because it's really. I want to save faces like in here because it's really dense, and my computer is not that. My computer does not like dense. So I want to know how to do that. How do I save faces in here? Chat, can you help me? Whoever is watching, can you help me with this problem?
It's just tab, okay? So you can see it's just toggling between those two modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that.
Oh, what? Tab? Tab. Well, that is very helpful. That is really helpful.
Now, this is okay, right? But you can see it's got like some artifacting. It's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one, and it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I...
What? What? What?
There is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your...
Do what? don't see it. Proportional editing. Shortcut O. Oh! His toolbar is all the way over here. For some reason.
The toolbar. So, if you enable that, now, if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there.
Oh. Oh. Whoa. That is cool. That is very cool. I like that.
And that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else, just so that you could get around that. But guys, you got to get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's going to make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out. Okay, I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural.
Let's go ahead and do that. Wait, what? It is
if we were making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical.
I think that bump is too high. a little saggy. Yeah, now that looks real. That looks like a donut.
Looking donut, sorry, spherical, round looking circular donut, because it just, your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut, just all around it, just a little bit over here, and you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out. I can make a small circle just by scrolling up, like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks a little more natural. I might want to make the inner part as well. Let me just drag that in with a smaller circle. And that's pretty good. Let's just have a look from the top. I might actually just drag that out, make it a little bit more like that. But there you go. It's pretty good for a donut. It's still kind of simple. It's not too detailed. Variation in it that it's more interesting to look at. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. Go back into edit mode with tab. Donuts, when they're sitting in the little vat thing, right? They're only like half submerged, so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it, is usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days, and there was no tutorials. I would do this if I wanted to select this. Silly, because there's a function, a tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the points, but on the edge, like this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected. So if I want to shrink this, right, what would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing, so I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter.
Scale in. What if select these ones, then scale that in as well, and then take these ones found down here, and then G to move that a little bit up. Oh no, I don't want to do that. G to move it up, just up. Oh, I got a notification. Wait, which one did I need to? That one. Alt, select G. Alright. This donut is coming. This donut looks very good already. It looks like a bagel, to be honest. It looks like I would just flip it open and put some cream cheese in it.
And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off. Like some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. I gotta match exactly everything I do. Like I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it. Because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now before we move to the next part, how to save. How to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as and you just get one file. It's called .blend. Very literal file extension. Really pushing the limits of what a file extension can be. That's almost a word.
Save as. Donut.blend. Save as. Save. Oh, it is. It's thinking. I wish it made the sound that FL does when you save a song. But anyway, I've saved. What is this cursor doing? Oh.
Blender. Anyway, .blend and that's it. And then next time you open it up, it's exactly like it. It's not like ZBrush where you got like 4 or 5 different ways to save a project or an object or a tool or a... Hate ZBrush. Okay, that's how you save. Now also finally I would say, if you need help, because I know if you're stuck and then you leave a YouTube comment, you might not get a reply. If you want immediate help, I've got a Discord. So I'll put the link below. So there's like a little channel in there where you can just ask for specific donut help. So if you're having issues, feel free to jump into that. And also, guys, don't beat yourself up. Like 3D is definitely has like a steep-ish learning curve. So you're in that steep slope right now, and it's really common. Like a lot of this stuff is very foreign. 3D is very unique. It's very different to a lot of 2D tools. But don't give up. Like it's definitely achievable to learn and self-learn. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to pay for a tutor. It's really easy to get help online nowadays. So do make use of that Discord. Post comments as well in the YouTube comments if you want to. But I hope you stay with it. So if you're ready to jump to the next part after you've saved your blend file, go ahead, click here, and I will see you there. Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default?
Anyway, that is the end of today's stream. Cause well, that was the end of the part. I'm doing 1 part per stream, 1 stream per day. Does that sound good with you guys? I mean, nobody has said anything throughout the entire stream. But let me go ahead and save. Oh, why did I save again? Anyway, that's the end of today's stream. I didn't get any comments letting me know whether or not I should do more stuff like this in the future, but I don't need to because I'm gonna do it anyway, despite if people say that I shouldn't. I'm gonna keep doing it